British Columbia Institute of Technology acknowledges that our campuses are located on the unceded traditional territories of the Coast Salish nations of Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh.
Let's beat that afternoon slump. My name is Avia Boulay, and these are your top headlines at 3:30. The City of Vancouver's projected budget for 2026 may heavily affect the food truck industry. Reporter Hayden Stewart has the latest.
Mayor Ken Sims' zero means zero budget means property tax will not increase next year. However, food truck operation costs could spike by up to 25 times if the budget is approved. Owner and CEO of Crack On Food Truck, Mark Carney, thinks the increased costs could make many food trucks shut down.
I think every other food truck owner will feel the same, and I think a lot of them will have to go out of business because they won't be able to keep up with all the costs. So it just seems kind of like unreasonable that the city would add on an extra fee for an industry that's already struggling.
The final vote for the budget will be on November 25th. Hayden Stewart, BCIT News.
The Vancouver Music Festival Indie Fest is back. Reporter Emma Balzner has more on how this festival supports local talent.
In its 6th year, Renaissance Opera's Indie Fest stands out from other music festivals. Indie Fest not only showcases local talent, but also premieres artists' work that are still in the early stages of production. Creator and artistic director Debbie Wong encourages up-and-coming artists to perform their work at whatever stage it is still in.
The thing that kind of sets us apart is that we really do showcase works in all phases of development. So when you come to Indie Fest, you might see something that's like having its first script reading all the way up to something that's about to go into full development or a world premiere.
Indie Fest takes place from November 20th to November 29th at various locations across Vancouver. Emma Bolsner, BCIT News.
Moving back to some BC news, a man killed in downtown Vancouver stabbing marks the 26th homicide this year. Vancouver police says a man has been stabbed to death on Monday at 3:15 p.m. No further details on the attack have been announced. Police in Abbotsford, BC are investigating after shots were fired overnight in what investigators are calling the latest case of extortion-related violence. Police say that they were alerted to the reports of the shooting at about 3:43 p.m. at the 2500 block of Jansen Street. The occupants of the home were asleep at the time, and they were not harmed in the attack. Police say that the shooting is targeted, adding to an ongoing investigation, but did not release further details. Police in Vancouver are warning the public about a release of a high-risk sex offender who will be living in the city. Police say 60-year-old Sean Deacon is under long-term supervision order while serving his sentence for possessing and accessing child pornography. Authorities say Deacon poses a high risk to children, and the public is asked to contact police immediately if he violates court-mandated conditions. Those conditions include no contact to any children under the age of 16, as well as staying away from places children are likely to be. British Columbia Energy Minister says that the province will reduce targets for electric vehicle sales, effectively scrapping the previous plans mandating that every new vehicle sold in the province must be zero emissions by 2025. Andrian Dick says that 100% of the mandate and 90% of a goal in 2030 is no longer realistic. The NDP government will introduce legislation next year to revive the goal. The VSB will decide on the future of Sir Guy Charleston Elementary School in East Vancouver next week. Reporter Arden McLeod spoke with the organizer of Save Charleston petition and has more.
The rezoning of Sir Sanford Fleming Elementary's basketball courts was approved by the city last week after advocates fought the proposal at City Hall. Melanie Cheng, leader of the Build Schools Now group, says that while the school currently has some space, it cannot sustain growth in the community.
We need complete communities. That is a part of the Vancouver plan. And if it's not happening now, we're concerned about the future. Closing that school essentially says that the land is surplus, and that decision just doesn't make sense.
Next Monday, the VSB will host a delegation on the pending closure of Sir Guy Carleton Elementary. Cheng hopes that despite the distance, parents from the neighborhood will voice their concerns. Arden McLeod, BCIT News.
The CEO of Canada Post says it's not sustainable for postal services to keep relying on government bailouts as the Crown Corporation continues to bleed money. Ottawa offered Canada Post a $1 billion loan in January to help with the postal services remain afloat. Doug Edinger told the company during an annual meeting today that Canada Post has a plan to turn around the business, so Canadian taxes aren't funding a failing postal service.
Unfortunately, the reality today is that when Canada Post loses money, taxpayers are footing the bill. That bill is approximately $1 billion a year. That is not only unsustainable, it is unnecessary, and quite frankly, it's unacceptable.
Ottawa made changes to Canada Post mandate in September, allowing it to reduce delivery standards, close some post offices, and expand community mailboxes for more addresses. Alberta's use of the Charter's notwithstanding clause on its transgender legislation is alarming for some advocates. Marnie Pana spoke out ahead of the government using the clause to uphold the three bills around health, school, pronouns, and sports. She says it's an attack on human rights.
If we allow this to continue, nobody's rights are safe. Yesterday it was teachers. Today it's trans youth and all trans people. Tomorrow it could be women's health, reproductive rights, racial minorities, or anyone that doesn't fit the government's ideology.
Premier Danielle Smith says that the legislation is about protecting children from making life-altering decisions. Alberta's cabinet minister in charge of primary health care is facing questions on possible major changes in how family doctors operate. The Globe and Mail newspaper is reporting that Alberta is considering legislative changes that would permit doctors to work under public and private health systems. The Canadian Medical Association, which represents physicians across the country, says Albertans will be left waiting longer to access health care if the government moves forward with this plan. Mohammed bin Salman, the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, arrives at the White House with fanfare. It's the first time that Mohammed has been on U.S. soil since the murder of Jamal Khashoggi in 2018. The Washington Post journalist was also a critic of the Saudi government. The U.S. intelligence community says that bin Salman ordered his murder. ABC News White House correspondent Karen Travers has the latest.
President Trump today dismissed a question about his family's business ties to Saudi Arabia and whether there's a conflict of interest as he serves in office.
They've done very little with Saudi Arabia, actually. I'm sure they could do a lot. And anything they've done has been very good.
Just this week, the Trump Organization announced it's developing a new hotel in the Maldives with its Saudi-linked partners. And the Trump family already has multiple projects in Saudi Arabia, including Trump Towers in Jeddah and Riyadh and a Trump Plaza in development. Karen Travers, ABC News, the White House.
The Senate agrees to pass a bill on the Epstein files. Both the House and the Senate acted decisively today to pass a bill to force the Justice Department to publicly release the files on convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. It's a remarkable display of approval for an effort that has struggled for months. President Donald Trump now says he will also sign the bill. At a news conference today, Daniel Bensky, who was abused or allegedly abused by Jeffrey Epstein, says his victims come from a variety of backgrounds, but stand together in solidarity in wanting to stop the abuse and its denial by those in power.
We're united in the call for transparency, complete transparency, to find justice. Justice for our younger selves. These pictures that you see, they're real people. I wish I could go back and give my former self a hug and say, this matters and it's going to change, and mean it.
And moving on to our sports segment today, the Vancouver Canucks are looking ahead after their 8-5 defeat against the Florida Panthers. The Canucks lost after being ahead 2-0 in the first period. The Panthers responded with 5 straight goals and taking a 3-goal lead in the second. Vancouver then tied it up 5-5 early in the third, while Florida answered with 3 final goals in the back of the net to win the game. The Canucks are back on home on Thursday night to face off the Dallas Stars. Lululemon has unveiled the Canadian kit ahead of the Winter Olympics in Milan. Greg Strong with the Canadian Press has more.
The collection leans heavy on darker reds and maroons, glacier-inspired blue-greens, and some giant maple leaves. Design director Catherine Lebrun says it's meant to inspire patriotic cheer when athletes are at the Games without sliding into kitsch. It's the Vancouver-based clothing retailer's third Olympic collection after Beijing in 2022 and Paris last year. The Milan Games begin in about 2.5 months. Greg Strong, the Canadian Press, Toronto.
The Grey Cup champions Saskatchewan Roughriders received a joyous welcome home at the Mosaic Stadium after winning the CFL's top prize. Patrick Janis said he drove over 5 hours from Winnipeg to watch his team lift the cup in front of the crowd in Regina.
Still a whirlwind and everything that's happening right now. I can't believe it. What just happened. It's been 12 years since we last won that cup and brought back to the prairies where it belongs. And they are running on adrenaline right now, but seeing all the people that showed up, even with the wind, that's what Rider Nation is. We're a family.
A championship parade is scheduled today in Regina, followed by a ceremony in front of the Legislature building. The Vancouver Whitecaps are hosting Los Angeles FC for the MLS Cup Playoff Western Conference semifinal. The Whitecaps have announced that tickets for the November 22nd game have already been sold out, with expected more than 53,000 fans expected at BC Place. Whitecaps have already seen more than 536,000 spectators in 2025, breaking a club record. And that's a wrap on European division of the 2026 World Cup qualifying. Scotland punched their ticket in beating Denmark at home 4-2. Austria also scraped by drawing against Bosnia. Switzerland, Spain, and Belgium have also gained their position for the World Cup. All nations finishing second in their group will face off in a playoff match in March. Matchups will be decided on Thursday through the draw in Zurich. Currently, 39 out of 49 nations will be hitting the pitch in Canada, the United States, and Mexico in June of 2026, with the draw coming out on December 5th to decide which nations will be facing each other for their first game in the group stage. Those were your top headlines at 3:30. Join us again tomorrow for more sports.
Everything is changing to digital. Everything is online. People aren't just waiting for the 6 o'clock news anymore. People want
I would recommend this program for anyone that isn't sure what kind of job they want in media, because you learn everything from like public relations to communications to video editing, like radio, TV. So you do get a lot of experience in all the different fields in media.